as AI or artificial intelligence. So our three speakers this morning, so I really want to get into the workshop part of this, so I don't want to talk very much at all, but Mark Boothe, who's the president of TeamLogic IT, Alex Magee, who's the president of AEM Create. And the last gentleman, so he's not a president, he's a CEO, so he goes by Prez. So Prez Matecki with assistwith.ai. Also want to recognize our three sponsors that we have for the Business Toolbox Committee. Texas Regional Bank, who allows us to park over there as well, so kind of an added benefit to that. Weaver, which is a CPA firm, and Gray Reed, which is a legal firm. So all three are board members here at the Chamber, and we thank them for their sponsorship. And with that, I'll turn it over to our team here. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Larry. I'm Mark with TeamLogic IT. So we've got about an hour and a half roughly for this workshop. My plan is to start high level from kind of security and administrative controls. The part that's going to be a little bit more interactive is where Prez is going to spend a lot more time going through specific use cases and prompt examples. This is our first workshop, so we're trying to keep this broad. We may eventually do one that's just focused on sales or different parts, but we're trying to give some general use cases to give people a taste. Because in the past year, AI is all over the news. Is it going to replace my job? What do I need to know in my job to make sure I stay relevant, right? So the goal is to give everybody some context around this, do's and don'ts, best practices. I'm a small business owner. I use this every day, sales, legal, operations, HR employee reviews. We're going to try to give you real world use cases in terms of how people are using this. So the first thing we want to talk about is AI and how to think about what it is. I mean, AI is ultimately a tool, right? I mean, accountants were first probably threatened when the calculator came out, when big equipment machinery came out, workers with shovels, right? I mean, this is a tool that realistically most of us are going to be impacted by, and we're going to find ourselves using on the job. I think it's like the internet. At some point, it's just going to become ubiquitous, and we're going to accept it's everywhere. But what you also want to think about with AI is it's very powerful, and so you have to understand the risks and security. There's a lot of stories out there about people who used it and did something, and it caused big problems, right? So good quality in, good quality out, garbage in, garbage out. You know, there's security risks and issues that you need to know. So the first one I want to think about is, you know, you're all here from a business perspective. There's obviously risk putting your personal data in there, but it also gets sensitive to your employers around what information to put in there. So we want to just take a minute to talk about personal accounts, why you really need to think about business or enterprise level subscriptions. The data that I've seen recently is, if you look, we'll focus mostly on ChatGPT, but ChatGPT, Anthropic, all the major ones are saying, well, probably about 5% of people are really actually on a paid subscription, right? Most people are using the free tools. And we know in 2026, if it's free, what's the product? Your information, right? You're pretty much giving it away. You don't have as good a security controls if you're on a free plan. And so if you're on one of the free plans and you're putting in company data, you may as well just broadcast it on the internet. It's probably going to go somewhere out there. So this is where I make the case. You really need to think about a paid business subscription just for security controls alone. There's a lot of other reasons to do that. But I would definitely ask you to give really careful consideration to that and guardrails. So it needs to be used responsibly because it's a very powerful tool, and you don't want to avoid AI. The goal is to make sure that you're using it within appropriate guardrails. A lot of companies have not yet designed acceptable AI use policies the way they have in other areas of the technology. So if you're out of business or you own a business and you don't have an AI acceptable use policy, that's something that I would definitely give a lot of consideration to. High level things that you don't want to put into AI. You don't want to put client confidential information. You need to be careful about putting in financial information. You can do that if you want, although I would recommend pulling out your company name. Just, oh, this is generic. That way it's not directly tied to you. So you have to be careful about that. Passwords, regulated data, healthcare, HIPAA, all those types of things. Believe it or not, a lot of people use ChatGPT or some of these chatbots for personal questions. Right now, if you put in a health question in ChatGPT, it does not have the same HIPAA protections that you do if you have a conversation with your doctor. Okay, lawmakers are behind on this. So there's a lot of protections that aren't there yet because it's moving very, very quickly. So don't assume that you have the protections in here that you would normally have in a lot of other places. So if the number one rule I say is if you would not post it publicly, do not paste it into AI. Just assume you just broadcast it on LinkedIn or Facebook or what have you for everybody to see. So I'm just curious by show of hands, how many of you are on an actual paid plan right now? You're actually doing better than most people out there. And how many of it is a business plan that's a paid plan? Okay, fewer plans, couple fewer hands. Okay, so you're doing better there. That's good because if you don't have a business plan, there's a lot of concerns. I'm going to show you just kind of at a high level. This is my ChatGPT business account, and there are a lot of administrative control that I have that you will not have in a kind of personal plan. There's some individual data controls that we have in here, but if I go into the business side on an actual workspace setting, now I can go in here and have my members. I have some controls over permissions and roles. Now I'm on a business plan. If you have 50 or more people, you want an enterprise. And so some of this is grayed out, but you don't really have control if you're on an individual unpaid plan, or even if you're on an individual pay plan, there's not really business level types of controls that you have in here, right? One of the things I can do, I don't put as many limits on my people, but there's a lot of other applications that you can connect to ChatGPT. And if it's a business setting, you probably don't want somebody going on to 1-800-Flowers on their business account, right? So there's controls that you have in here from an administrative side that you would not have outside of that. There's also identity and access controls. So just a lot of things that you need to really carefully think about before going to and just using an individual plan. I will just kind of show you at a high level. You can create custom GPTs and share those with people. That gets a little bit more technical, but you don't have that if you have a individual plan. And you also don't have some of the project collaboration capabilities that you have in here, right? These AI data centers, in my view, their real model is they're selling you intelligence and automation. That's really what they're doing, right? AWS sells Netflix an ability to stream a video service. This is selling you intelligence and automation and the ability to collaborate and have that intelligence kind of be the base layer that interacts with all of these other third-party applications.
Question?
Yep.
What is AWS?
Amazon Web Services.
Okay.
So Amazon's obviously huge. That's one of the biggest clouds. They're very popular with a lot of companies that develop applications. I don't think it's ever been public, but my understanding is Netflix doesn't have their own servers or data centers. They just have a large Amazon account, and they built their entire streaming platform on AWS.
Mark, when you talk about security, how do you get the provider to give you useful, reliable information about security? But what I found when I ask them, they're in kind of sales mode. They give you a little bit of patter. How do you know exactly what's going to happen to your data when you use systems? There's some you get access to check that.
Well, it's a matter of going in when you set up a business account and make sure that you have all the security controls enabled so it doesn't expose sensitive data. There is still a risk if you put in sensitive data, even if the controls are on, it could be exposed. So that's where I tell people to be careful. There's nothing that's 100%.
Yeah, I'm more or less talking about when you're making a decision who to go with.
Right.
I don't want to pay for the service to find out that I don't want the service.
Yeah. So a couple options. One, you can go month to month. Or two, I would talk to somebody who knows and understands. I will say most of them, I have paid subscriptions for Microsoft 365 Copilot because we're a Microsoft partner. I have ChatGPT Business. I also have Claude. I have 3 that I'm paying for depending upon the use case. These are all big major ones, and they have very comparable data controls. I mean, they understand that if there's a security leak, it's massive damage to the brand, but they're all a little bit different in terms of how they handle it. So you really need to know somebody who knows these tools to make sure that they're setting it up. And I can't give you 100% guarantee. It's a fair question.
Yeah, they do. They can tell you obviously, but how do you know that they're not using your data to train that model?
Well, and so that's a setting that I have in here. Whereas for individual accounts, that's usually that feature's turned off where it is training the models. Whereas the business accounts, once you're paying, when I went in and got the subscription by default, it says do not use our data to train models. And now there's a risk, there's a trust factor there, right? Because I can't see what they're doing behind the scenes. But the biggest trust I know, or a reason I have some trust, is if they had a major data breach and they were exposing data, they would lose a ton of customers. Would go to one of the other options, right? So, but be careful what you put in here. Be careful what you use as you connect applications. Just kind of high level. Again, right now there's 100 some odd applications. Most of them connect to. They just added things like into a QuickBooks. So if you're a business owner, I can go in here and use their AI and say, compare me to an MSP in Texas that did X number of million, has X number of people. And I mean, it just pulls all the public data and can give you unbelievable amounts of strategic data because I've connected my QuickBooks account. I think what you realistically will see in the coming years is there will be hundreds more, if not thousands. Every major application is going to try to connect to these to where you can use their AI and intelligence to interact with that application. This is why if you saw the news, I think a month or so ago, a lot of these software as a service stocks took a big hit and it was all over the stock market. And the fear is you won't need to log into the front end interface of QuickBooks and some of these applications. You'll just go in here. It's not that they don't have value, but the front end that we interface with, you won't need to use it as much because you can just connect it to your AI and ask questions. If I was a front end developer at QuickBooks, I'd be very concerned because once you connect it, it'll get to a point you don't need to log in and view the front end. You can just ask the questions right here. You can ask questions across multiple applications. And so that's part of what's being very disruptive to a lot of the businesses out there. It's just those kinds of capabilities, right? So, but high level understanding, better control on business or enterprise accounts by far compared to an individual. I've got more administrative control. I can actually invite users to a workspace and again, determine some permissions. Whereas I met with a client on Friday, main person, he just has his own paid account, but there's no real administrative controls on there. So we talked about, risks, and it just better aligns with internal companies' compliance expectations. I will tell you as a business owner, one limitation on most of these, unless you're on an enterprise plan, there's not great reporting capabilities yet. The joke in technology is they always, sell the front end and they figure out the reporting later. They'll get there because management wants to see reports, but there are some reporting limitations. But I would expect to see those beefed up pretty substantially here in a little bit. Does anybody here have a company that you have an acceptable AI use policy and all that's been built out pretty well? Just show of hands. Couple, yeah. Most of them are kind of just winging this. It's like they know we need to use it, but we don't understand the guardrails around it. So that's part of why we're having the conversation. So mistakes to be aware of. Don't always assume AI output is correct. We know it hallucinates. Ironically, humans are actually responsible for some of that hallucination because sometimes it goes out on the internet and reads a post on Reddit or sees a YouTube video, and if it can't find anything else, it assumes that's just definitive knowledge, and you get a bad answer, and it's humans that put that out there. So we've done a little bit of this to ourselves, but AI can still make mistakes. I try to remind people that this is still new technology, and the AI today is the worst it will ever be. It will only get better. The hallucinations are going down. The sophistication of the tools is getting better. The bugs are getting smaller and smaller. They believe this is going to get recursive where it just kind of improves itself. We can step back and, it's either Terminator or we're all in Nirvana. So I guess we'll figure out how that plays out. And everybody's worried about that. So in terms of prompting, Prez is going to go deeper into this, but for those of you who are newer to it, you can do a traditional Google search type lookup, but prompting and prompt engineering is a skill. And I would encourage you, if you have not done it already, it doesn't have to be ChatGPT, it could be Microsoft Copilot or any of these. I would encourage you to go in there and say, I work at this company, this is my role, I need to get better at prompting. Here's similar tasks that I do with my job. You don't have to expose sensitive data. Your company is probably public knowledge. It's on your LinkedIn. You're not telling it anything that it wouldn't know. Put me through prompt training. Start me off at a junior level, and then over time, try to work me up to a PhD level. It literally will tutor you to help you get better, because a lot of people are understandably concerned. Is this going to impact my job? Am I going to be relevant? The people who can run and administer AI skillfully and whatever your role is at your company have a much better career trajectory than those who can't. It's just that simple. There are brand new jobs that are being created now and a whole lot more that we have not thought of in terms of how you will use and architect AI to solve solutions. So one thing I just want to touch on, I don't have live data, but these are two very great use cases that I'm starting to use all the time now in my business. I'm a small business owner. Claude and ChatGPT recently rolled out add-ins for Excel. If you spend your time in finance and accounting, Claude's is honestly the best. It's better than ChatGPT's. I think this is going to be a commodity. They'll all have it. I can upload additional documents for context. I can type in questions in here, right? I can put all of this context in it and then just use natural language to interact. And the amazing thing about this is it is fully contextually aware of every formula, every cell, every tab, every micro. People used to spend years to learn this with Excel. And now if you just know the right questions to ask, you have complex financial models, it sees it and you can just ask the questions and have it do analysis and say, compare me with competitors on their financials based on industry studies for businesses of this size. It just pulls it in, right?
What is paid for and it's closed, correct? So if you've got your financial information in there, is it safe?
Oh, there is a free tier of Claude.
So there's a free tier,
Right.
but yeah, and I'm glad you're on the page here. So another big difference is, yes, you have security controls, which is a good thing. It's not sharing as much data. You have administrative controls. The other big difference that you have as you go to the pay plans is you get the newest models. So you're getting the latest and greatest. And 6 months ago is night and day in AI. I mean, it's moving that fast. The other difference is you get what's called a longer context window, right? And so when you're essentially subscribing or leasing intelligence from these providers. And so the more context you have, you can put in more input and you can get in more output. If you're on a free plan, you maybe only put in so much data. It may think for a while and then crash and say that's too much, right? You've exceeded your content. They call it tokens. I mean, these are techie people. It's like a video game to them. It really is, right? So it's how much context you put in and how much you put out. They think of it like going to an arcade when I was a kid. I'm 51, so that's what it's like. But if you're financial or accounting of any kind, Copilot has one. Honestly, even though my whole team is on ChatGPT, Claude's is the best. The ChatGPT's, I think, is very, very good. Claude has an advantage in that it actually, within Excel, it just rolled this out and now has contextual awareness of other Microsoft documents as well. So it's not just limited to what you're seeing here. So if you've got an Excel or you have a PowerPoint, Claude, ChatGPT will have this too. I am using this to build presentations and client account reviews. So I can go in here and take a prior proposal, or maybe it's a account review with a client, use this as a template, preserve the slide master. I want to keep all my logos and stuff like that in here, give it notes, historic tickets, data, from all the technology stuff that we did, how many tickets. I need to build a PowerPoint that says we closed this many tickets and your network had 99.9%. It will build it out, make the graphs. I'm terrible at the visual stuff. I admit it. I'm not good at it. This is my savior. So if you are in sales, finance, or accounting, you should definitely be encouraging your company to try to use these tools, because it is, for the $25 or $30 a month, I cannot even begin to tell you how many hours it will save you as a business person. It's just huge. Suddenly you don't have to be an expert in designing these things or building financial models or macros. It just sees it and it's able to do it. One of the very big risks, I will tell you, and they realize this is a concern, is what's called prompt injection risk. And that is where if something gets on your computer and it gets into this little chatter in here, whether it's my ChatGPT or whether it's inside of Excel, and somehow my computer gets hacked and it starts saying, hey, delete all these files, you're in big trouble, right? That's where you've got to be very careful how you know how to use this. Same thing like with Claude. ChatGPT is going to roll out something now, but Claude has this co-work feature where I can work in a folder. So this is a sales folder that I have where it sees all my proposals, all my legal documents. I very carefully architected this shortly after it came out to say, do not make any changes without making a backup copy, and never delete without absolutely asking me 10 times to delete anything, because there's a risk in doing this. So it's a very powerful tool in terms of what it can do, but there's a lot of risk management that you need to understand. So if your companies are giving you the tool, but they're not putting you through some of that risk training, you really need to encourage them to do that, because there's some horror stories out there about people who meant to do something good and something really bad happened. Makes sense. See what else. High level, and then I'll pass it off to I think Alex will be next. So to get an example, good prompt versus a better prompt, and you can get much more complex than this. You can actually connect these tools to your email, your Microsoft, your Gmail accounts, right? It can see all these kinds of things through connectors or apps, depending upon what they want to call it, your Gmail, your Teams. If you're away from the office for half a day and you've got a bunch of Teams messages, you can go into Teams and say, what are the most urgent team messages I have that I need to respond to first? Because I've got 200 of them. It'll tell you now, right? You can do that kind of stuff with it. That's where it's really helpful. But you can also have much more complex prompts, right? So you could actually put in your email connector, and let's say a prospect emailed you, you could say, write a follow-up email to a prospect about our IT services. Well, that's pretty generic, right? Now you can say, write a professional follow-up email to a CFO at a 25-person company. You know what I mean? You can give it a lot more context, and now it tailors it much better for that individual. And again, you can get really, really long prompts. Same thing with a business strategy. Help me create a business strategy for next year. I'm an IT company, or act as a strategic advisor for a 10-person MSP in Dallas. Revenue's 2.5 million. Very different context that you're going to get based on what you feed it. So prompt and context engineering is absolutely key. I mean, that's one of the absolute biggest skills I think anybody's going to have, is to really learn how to prompt, how to engineer. And if you give it the right context, these tools will coach you on how to do that. So I probably spend hours a week just learning new prompting and new techniques because it's that powerful.
When I use Claude, it prompts me after I've given it a few prompts.
Mhm.
It starts to give me prompts. Do I want this? Do I want that? And to me, it's like, I don't really need to learn prompting that much because it's prompting me for it.
Yeah, there's ways to go into your settings and personalization on these, and give it custom instructions around the tone. Don't disclose this, don't do that. This is what I do for a living. You can tell it, don't just validate everything I say, right? Sometimes you'll ask it something crazy and it wants to be your friend or your buddy, and it'll say, oh yes, you're always right, you're always right. I literally went into mine and customized it and says, don't tell me I'm right. What am I missing? Ask me follow-up questions. You need to ask it to challenge you. If all you want to do is just go in there and get validated, it's going to hallucinate all day long, right? You're going to have problems. You really will. You don't want that. I literally have all of my AI programmed to say, challenge my assumptions, ask follow-up questions. What did I not think about? Don't just go in there and ask it to assume you're right on everything, because you won't look right. So, any other questions before I hand it off? Alex, all right. Swap. Yep. Quick swap.
There we go. All right. So Mark had a good chat about the types of plans, things like that. I'm going to be a much more kind of high level talk about what AIs can do for you, and how you might use them in your business specifically, but not about ChatGPT will do this or Claude will do that, but just more kind of a high level knowledge. First of all, I want to talk about what AI does well, because people can try to use it for a lot of different things. I mean, he mentioned you could use it as a Google search, you could have a very complicated prompt, but there are things that it will do better than other things. So, for example, summarizing information, a lot of people use AIs to load in meeting notes from a really long meeting or a bunch of meetings, especially in sales. If you've got a bunch of sales calls and now you're doing the final quote, you can get all those notes, stick them in the prompt, and it'll print out kind of the high level information about it. So you don't have to go read all that. Which is great I use that. So I'll do prospecting and I'll hand it to my team and say, now go make a quote for me. So I don't have to do that, but they don't have to be on all the meetings, which is great. Another thing it's good is drafting or formatting information. So people often talk about email writing, because sometimes that can be very difficult. Personally, I like writing my own emails, but I don't mind having AI help me with the draft, especially if they're complicated. But if you have something like operating procedures or manuals that you're trying to put together, I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. And AI can be really helpful with formatting that, especially if you're doing a lot of different manuals. Like sometimes for clients, I'll make manuals for their website, and I can use, load one from last week and say, I'll make one that's like this, but for this new project. And it'll use that same format, but my new content. So that can be really helpful. Also transforming data. Mark mentioned financial information. Sometimes if you're dealing with a lot of customer data or other things or tickets, if you're in IT like us, you can say, here are all the tickets, and I want to know how many of this type, or what day did I do the most, and it can transform your data into something a bit more readable, which can be very helpful. And then the last one that does really well is recognizing patterns. And so Mark and I have talked in the past about sending in projects or financial information, saying this is how much I spent on a project, this is how much I made across a year of work. And you can say, tell me if I'm making more money on a certain type of product or if I'm losing money on a certain type of product. And that could be pretty complicated if you're a small team like us. I mean, I don't have a financial person, I'm the financial person. I'm not educated in that. So that can be really helpful to kind of tell me what might be a waste of my time or what I might need to shop out to somebody else or something like that. So it can be good for pattern recognition as well. And then some common misconceptions that people have. Mark mentioned hallucination. So a lot of people think that AI understands facts. So it may seem that way sometimes. Like if you ask a question like, what's the age to run for president, it may give you the right number, but it's not because it knows all of the different ages you have to be to run for a certain office. It's just because it found that in some article and vomited it up. So it's not necessarily understanding all the facts. And so that's why sometimes it can seem correct, and then other times you get lawyers who are disbarred for making up stuff in the courtroom. He has not been disbarred, I'm just saying. He and I have talked about that in the past, about how sometimes it'll come up with fake stuff that seems right, and well, the other stuff was right, but this one's not right. So it doesn't work like a person where it knows all these things. It just kind of generates text. People also think that it can replace expertise. I see that a lot, where I'll meet with a client and they'll say, well, I have this website design that an AI built. I say, well, it might be good, or it might be complete crap. It kind of depends on how the AI was working that day. So it's still good. And one thing that I see with other people online and in other spaces that are more AI connected is a novice can use an AI to make novice level work. An expert can use an AI to make expert level work. So if you are a user of an AI who is more experienced, then your output will usually be of a higher quality. But if you don't know how to design something, your designs are not going to be as good as someone who does. So that's where Mark was talking about it as a tool. So a really expert accountant can do some really expert work. And if you're like me and you're not an accountant, work's not going to be that good necessarily. It may be, just like it may sometimes get the right fact, but it's not. I wouldn't replace a really seasoned accountant with a novice accountant and an AI. I would say that. And then the last one. So AI, some people think it's a complete automation for things. I know Mark talked about how it can plug into different tools and you can have connectors, and that can be very helpful. But you still need the underlying software that does the work. So QuickBooks can connect and you can ask QuickBooks questions. But if you don't have QuickBooks, the AI is not going to be able to mimic all of that functionality in that software. So, I hear some people say, well, I don't need a website. I just have an AI chatbot. I thought, well, still need to put that somewhere. You still need information somewhere. You can't just have a chatbot on Google that you just run into. So it can be very helpful in automation, but it's not going to be a complete. You can't fire all your other software and then just start using an AI to do it. You're going to have some trouble. So I want to give a couple examples. Prez will do some more hands-on, detailed work in the AI in a minute. But just to give you some ideas to kind of get the ideas flowing. The first example that I have, something that I do with my team, I mentioned it earlier, is generating draft sales quotes. And so you don't know much about my company. We do an extremely large amount of services that kind of make me dizzy to look at the list of talking to people. And sometimes it's hard to remember all the things that we can do and all the people that can do those things for me. So I have a list of products as things that I like to do. It's tagged with people who can help me with those things. And then I also have example quotes from the past. And I get notes from doing a client call. I can put those into the AI and say, here's my product list, here are my notes, here's an example format that I want you to use. And then I can have it give me a quote, and it'll match up the products that seem like they'll answer the questions that the client had in the meeting. So if they say, I really want to collect leads on my website, I'll say, well, luckily you have this contact form product that will work very well with that. And so it can do that across all the products I have and all the notes in the meeting. And then it generates a quote. I found that it's not always correct with the pricing because it kind of adds them up wrong, or it'll do kind of weird things. But that's why if a human looks at that, they can fix some of those issues and say, okay, that pricing's a little bit weird, or no, we don't offer, car detailing. That's kind of a weird a weird thing that snuck in there. But in general, it's a good starting point for us. And if I'm doing a lot of projects, I can get those drafts and then review them as a person later. It's also really helping as I try to expand my sales team a bit with people who aren't as versed in my 75. They don't necessarily have to know all of them because they have this AI that builds the draft. And then a way to extend it. And if any of you have been on the other side of a sales call with me, you know I'm not a very pushy salesman. But if you are a more pushy salesman that wants to, drive your revenue up a bit, you can ask it to add upsell opportunities or cross-selling opportunities. For example, if I'm doing a website quote and it says, these guys could use some videos, go on the website, it'll suggest, I can ask it to suggest something else and say, you should make videos like you did for that one guy last year. And so it creates more opportunities in that I may not think about because I just want to code stuff. I don't really want to sell everybody stuff. So that's something that can really help my team out because they don't have that. The second example I'm going to give is documenting a business process. So a while back, I did a project with UTD, and I thought this is going to be so exciting. I love UTD. They're so great. And then they sent me this massive tech audit that I had to do, and I thought, by Thursday, I don't know if I can do that. And so what I ended up doing was I created a workflow where I could tell the AI how I do certain things. Say when I upload a website, I do X, Y, and Z. When I try to test for security on it, I'll do these steps. And they're usually just notes in a little notepad document around or on a sticky note or something. And I put that all in there. And I said, structure a procedure that I can hand to my website contractor. And so it printed out this whole thing that I can now give to my contractor, Andrew, and say, this is how we do websites now. And he says, that looks very familiar to what we used to do, but it's in one document. So it's allowed me to standardize the way we do things. I then did that same process with how do I send bills or how do I, manage financial accounts and things like that. And over time, I've built a manual that is something that would take me a very, very long time to do. But because I've been able to just put some stream of consciousness thoughts in there, it was able to structure a document for me. So that was extremely helpful. It can also be helpful with larger teams where it's not just one person who knows everything. But if I had 50 contractors and they all knew one little piece of the process, I could send out an email and say, hey, send me your thoughts on this, combine all that stuff, which would take me weeks to go through. And then the AI will just make the process for me. And just like the sales quotes, it'll hallucinate some stuff. It'll make up some weird things. And so I always go back and review it. But what I've really enjoyed is asking it afterwards. Now that you know how I do things now, make recommendations to help me do it faster next time or skip some redundant steps or things like that. That's very helpful because I benefit from strategy that I don't necessarily know about, or I'd have to go hire somebody to tell me how to do it. And this kind of helps me get the ball rolling there. So those are just some examples, and I'm going to hand it over to Prez. But if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them. Yes.
So you can put it in. You've got a sticky note. How do you put that stuff in?
Type it. I usually type it into a Word document or
you
something,
have to
and then
type
I
it.
save
Yeah, you
it.
can take a picture with your
Or you
phone
can take a
and
picture,
send it to ChatGPT.
or you can also sometimes, like I was cooking some food, but apparently the recipe was only in my girlfriend Amy's mom's mind, so we had her on speakerphone while we were cooking, and I had my phone next to it, ChatGPT listening, and it documented the whole recipe. And so now I don't have to. I mean, we can still call her, but I don't have to call her to get that
So that's a
recipe.
follow-up question.
Yes.
Somehow, Amy's mother's mind dropped this in.
Yeah, we don't have to get into that. That's a whole different conversation.
Talk about hallucination.
Yes. That's very. All right, let's take a turn.
You have all these different sources throwing in their thoughts and they get synthesized, and
Yeah.
then you have to look out for errors or wacky ideas.
Mhm.
Does the draft pinpoint the source of the information that it's relying on? So you can go back and say, hey, you said this, what's the deal? Kind of thing. Or are you just left with a mass of stuff that you have to figure out for yourself?
So when I first started using LLMs, I didn't do that. But now you can sort of ask, and it'll even tell you what websites it got information from. So if you're not just working with information that you gave it, it can even tell you, I got this from Reddit or I got this from Microsoft's website, things like that. So you can ask it. I haven't done that because it's usually just me putting the information in. But if I was using a larger team, like I mentioned, 10 or more people, definitely, who do I blame for this step? And it'll tell me, the note you got from your web developer, Andrew, had this weird erroneous, he takes a 5-hour nap in the middle of the day. Maybe don't do that part. And so you can do that because although it's, as I said, it's not understanding facts, it still has a pretty good handle on information and the text that it's reading from. So yeah, I definitely figure out who to blame for weird stuff. Yes.
What if like drafting emails or papers, can it learn like your style of writing?
Yeah, so Mark briefly mentioned something that I think relates to that. So most of these AIs have a memory. So for example, in my account, it knows quite a bit about me because I've done all these chats. So when I ask something, it'll say, since you're a very technical programmer, I'm going to suggest this option because it's something I could do. But if someone else, like, so my partner, Amy, girlfriend slash business partner, she's more of a graphic animation kind of person. So if she asks the same question, because of her history talking to ChatGPT, is probably going to suggest a less code heavy option. So if you're using it consistently for writing emails, let's kind of figure out what your style is. And so if you're more, friendly in your emails, it'll do that. Or if you're more, I need you to pay this bill today. Let me know if you have any trouble paying that today, and you do that all the time, then it'll be more similar to your style. And you can also change the tone as well. So if you get a draft, you say this is not friendly enough, then you can say make this a little more friendly, and it'll tweak it a little bit and make it kind of customize the tone. But it should remember some of that information. So as you use it, as I've used it, I rarely have to redirect it because it understands kind of what I like, probably what I complain about more than what I say. He always complains when I write it like this, and so it kind of adjusts it. So it does have smart. But as Mark mentioned, it has more memory. That's that kind of, was it his context?
Well, it's context window, and you get longer and more memory. All users want more. You don't want to have to go back and re-explain things.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to do. I didn't have a chance to get into it, but when you have chats up there, you can rename the chat. And so if you've got a long thread that you're working on, you really don't want to have to start a new chat, go back to zero. Think of something you can remember, because you can go to search your chats and then say, oh, this is this client or this prospect. You don't have to start over and re-explain and re-upload all the data. So there's also an aspect, and this goes into administering IT, which is kind of memory management, is the way I think about it. Like, how do I make sure that I'm going into the right chat that already has the right memory, because you don't want to have to start over again. So there's just all those little tips and tricks that you learn over time. So
Yeah, and that reminds me of something. So Amy and I are hiring some more contractors because we have too much work to do, we need more people. And it's hard to do that while you're also trying to do the work. So she decided to try to use, in ChatGPT, I think they're called GPTs.
Yeah.
In Gemini, they're called gems. And they're just sort of pre-formatted, almost prompts that you can reuse. So she came up with a gem that is an HR assistant who helps us write job postings. So we know what job we want to hire for, but we don't want to have to write the whole thing. And so whenever we have a job posting, she just goes in and says, now we're hiring this job. And then it'll print out the pre-formatted job posting, because she did a lot of work in the beginning. And so that way, every post she gets isn't from Gemini, isn't a job posting. It's just in that one or GPT. So you could do, an email GPT or an email gem, and you tell it how you want to write the email, and then you can go back in any day and add a new email or draft it. Sometimes if you're just doing a normal chat, they can get a little bit windy. As you ask different things, it'll kind of add different pieces on. I've seen that a lot. One time I asked about a WordPress website, and it had WordPress specific stuff. And then a few hours later, I was asking about a from code website, and it was saying, well, make sure you go into the WordPress tab. Well, there's no WordPress tab because it's a from scratch website. And it had just pulled that piece from that other chat. So I would encourage you to investigate the GPT system or a gem in Gemini to have a more structured kind of tunnel vision version. It's a little less flexible.
They're called projects, and Cloud use them all the time.
Yeah, so they're very, very helpful. Yes.
So when I use my business account, I have like two voices. One is the brand, the tone and the voice for my brand, which is my company. Then the other one is from me personally, as the executive, sending out emails and sending out documentation to my clients. So you can train it on the two different voices, whether it's personal or for your company.
Yeah, so it gets very complicated very quickly, but also very powerful. That's kind of like Mark was saying, it's a very powerful tool. It's hard to use, but you get used to it.
Yeah, I think that what I was kind of thinking of is along the lines of what Mark was saying with building your prompt, is if you write in an email to say, an engineer versus a financial person versus an HR person, you could tell it to structure it associated with the reader, right? As opposed to coming from me. So someone is very detail oriented or not, design it that way and do it. Thinking it the other way and making it. So me saying, make it like I write it all the time, make it how my client wants to read it.
Well, if you have your email app connected and you've got an email thread with the person and it sees their signature and title, it'll already know, oh, this is a CFO or this is a, so from there it kind of learns like how, because it knows how they think based on all the context and data it has. I mean, if you're just doing a chat and it doesn't know that, maybe it's the first time you're reaching out, then yeah, you need to tell it that. But that's where there's benefits of connecting that stuff because it actually gets to see the historic email back and forth and say, okay, here's how we need to reply because it has all that context.
Okay, so
Yes.
based on this personal and the business prompting, do you tell it when you're prompting, I'm using my personal prompt voice here? I mean, how does it know it's the personal prompt voice versus the business prompting?
Yeah, so that would be using one of these GPTs or projects or gems where you program it ahead of time. I say program, I mean, you just tell it what you want it to do. Say, this is my personal voice. Any chat after this point is going to be from my personal perspective. But then you'd have a different conversation or a different GPT that is, now I'm using the brand voice. So the brand voice might want to be really peppy. The other one might want to be very down to business, you know. So you can tell it that in the beginning and you just have different strings and that way they're not mixing up.
And it helps if you add like 3 to 5 emails inside of that to be like, here's example 1,
Yeah.
example 2, example 3. So it's like, oh, that's what you want it to sound like. And that's
Exactly.
help me with
Yeah, that can be
moderating
really
and
helpful.
emails and all sorts of stuff.
That's where you can personalize. You can actually give it context. Say, here's providing examples. And so now it's going to kind of, sorry, but it's designed to help sound like you.
Yeah. I like the instructions too, because it responds to me like I want to hear it.
Yeah.
And it writes my emails the way I want other people
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. You can give it a little personality and the
Yeah.
whole thing the way you like it.
And it's kind of funny, I've noticed, or my team has noticed, that since I've started prompting and practicing prompting, they have to ask much, you know, they don't ask as many questions in the team meetings because I'm used to giving them all the context and saying, you know, we need to format it like this, and here's where you can get all the information. And so I try not to make him the butt of the joke because Andrew works really hard on our team, but he's the one who gets the most Alex time. So he's always giving me the feedback and said, you know, this year I never have to ask you a question because you tell me way too much information. And then last year I was always calling you afterwards in the middle of the task because I didn't know what you wanted. So it's kind of funny. It's really all about communication. It's like talking to a person. It's just kind of a really dumb person who doesn't understand. So when I talk to smart people, then they really know what I'm trying to say because I'm used to talking to the AI, which doesn't really get it. So it's really similar to talking to people. It's really just communication. Just has some quirks. But that's all I had for this segment. I'm going to let Prez. I'm really excited about getting you guys into AI and doing some hands-on stuff. So I'm going to get out of the way. Let Prez do that.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's now see how it all works in practice. So I'll be switching between the screens multiple times. I hope this is readable for you guys. If you want me to increase it, zoom in a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit.
So small. Right, how about now, or should I do it more? There you go. Okay. So yeah, first of all, I'll maybe echo what Mark said at the beginning. During this presentation, I'll be using just free version of ChatGPT, and I'll be sharing made up company information. If you do that with your company data, please make sure first you're on the business plan. You have like all these data protections in place and so on. But just for the sake of simplicity, and just to show you even what's possible in the free version of ChatGPT, I'll be using ChatGPT free. All right. So my whole presentation will be all the examples that I'll be giving will be relating to single case. So this is a company called Big D Leak Hunters. This is a roofing company. We have plenty of roofing companies here. This is a made-up example, but actually all these cases that I'll be discussing here are based on like real-life cases that I had with my clients. So company profile here is it's owner-operated Dallas roofing company. The owner name is Marcus Webb. He's 5 years in the business. He has a team of 5 people, 1 office assistant, 1 senior roofer, 2 juniors. Current clients are primarily residential homeowners, HOAs, and so on, property managers. And his current setup is fairly simple, as many small companies have. So he just uses phone calls, Word documents, and other Office suite applications, WhatsApp, Gmail, and free ChatGPT. This is obviously a mistake on side of Marcus, but let's assume that he will quickly upgrade to it. And he has no advanced AI system, so just ChatGPT, and that's all. And let's imagine in this scenario, it's Monday morning. On between Saturday and Sunday was a huge storm. So there is like a huge spike in demand for services of roofing companies. So when Marcus comes to the office on Monday morning, he can see constant flow of new emails coming, new calls, and so on. So it's very difficult for him to manage it. He's using Gmail. So let's take a look at one of the emails that he got to his inbox today. This is, let me maybe also zoom in. Oh, this is more or less readable. Okay, so this is from Karen. She's a property manager for a 34-unit townhome community on Frankfurt Road in Dallas. She's saying that obviously hail caused some visible damage. At least 6 roofs in this communities are damaged, and 2 of them are leaking. And she's saying like we need assessment as soon as possible. We carry 10,000 deductible, and we have a board meeting on a Thursday evening. So they need this assessment of the repairs costs before that. And she's obviously asking for a quick help, a quick turnaround. So if Marcus is just using Gmail, if you're Gmail users, you're probably aware that Gmail is providing some kind of basic answers, basic draft of the answer to the email right away. But very often they're as brief as in this example. So it will say just thank you for reaching out. We'd be happy to help you. We can schedule a call or something like that. Basically, it won't fully capture the whole context and understand the problem actually the client is facing. So replying like that is almost like a guarantee that Marcus will lose this client. So what he can do in this situation? It is really good if he's using this CRIT framework when creating prompts. So context, role, instructions, and tasks. And as you can see here, this is all the information extracted from this email. Marcus filled also information about the role he's in. He has some instructions to ChatGPT what should be the format of the reply, and explain to ChatGPT what is actually the task of AI in this case. And let's have a look. I have this prompt pre-written, and the way it will work is here in the first section of this prompt. I'll just simply paste what Karen wrote in her email, and then I'm assuming that Marcus already has like almost a library of prompts that he pre-prepared for situations like this. So in this case, he's let's say some of the details maybe he can fill up just to make sure that AI understand the case. It's the name of the client or some basic information about this situation. But then he takes all of this. Okay, so let me do it right away. Let's take first this email from Karen. Let's just copy it, paste it here in the chat window. Just below this email, let me paste the prompt that Marcus prepared following this prompting technique. And it will immediately, obviously, instruct AI how this email reply should be written. Right, so as you can see, it's still quite short, but it has all this relevant information extracted from the email. Some proposal that the crew will work on site on Tuesday or Wednesday. If current agrees to the terms, they will negotiate. And they'll document the damage clearly. And just a question for confirmation which day and time exact works for a visit of this crew. So almost like a perfect email. And if the structure of the this prompt, following this is already like pre-prepared, and Marcus just fill the gaps, let's say, in this readily available prompt, it will take him I don't know, probably 30 seconds to create a proper reply to this email. All right, but now the other thing let me go back to this page here. The other part of this case is now, let's say Marcus already sent the email. Let's say he reached agreement with Karen. She is excited because of a quick turnaround. And now Marcus, because he doesn't have enough crew to cover all these 6 roofs at once, especially that he has like other clients calling constantly. So he needs to call subcontractor. And he just uses a phone call. During this phone call, he makes some rough notes. So these are the notes, let's say, Marcus took from this call. And again, if Marcus has this kind of library of prompts where he just needs to fill the, let's say, the gaps. So in this case, this is the whole prompt. So let's have a look. So he already explained what the company is. He then lists some basic information how they usually deal with subcontractors. What is their normal price range for this kind of services? And here in the middle of this prompt, he has a section where he can immediately paste the notes that he took from this call with the subcontractor. And then at the end, this is the task section. Marcus is telling AI to create some kind of pricing offer, readily available text message to Ray, so he can, if he's using some kind of software that is connected to his phone, he can basically paste the copy and copy the answer from ChatGPT and paste it to text message to Ray. And some question to confirm some details. If Marcus forgot about something in this prompt, maybe AI can even suggest him what kind of 2 other things should be confirmed with subcontractor before they reach agreement. All right, so let's in the same chat window, let's just copy it and paste it here. Yes.
Can we get a copy of these on a desk?
Yes.
So I can send to everybody afterwards, because I doubt we're gonna be able to memorize it.
We are recording the session, and I'm planning to put it on the YouTube, so you'll be able to see it later on. All right, so AI already did the assessment of the situation. It said like the pricing that the contractor suggested is actually too high when you take into account current market rates, even in this let's say high demand situation. Then we have like a readily available text message to Ray, so the subcontractor, and a reminder for Marcus what else he needs to confirm before reaching an agreement with a subcontractor. But now I think we'll move to even more interesting part of this whole situation. So let's say, okay, now we have agreement with Karen. We have a subcontractor, but we would like to create a contract with Karen. We have just a verbal agreement so far, or over email agreement, but we need to create some kind of formal proposal for her. So in this case, till now, let's say Marcus was always taking some old contracts, trying to erase previous client information, put new information in. So it always took him, I don't know, 1 hour to prepare such a contract, even to, I don't know, 20 minutes to find the right contract version, because probably he has multiple versions of different contracts. And then to fill the gaps in the contract, and then just to make sure that the contract is well written. With AI, he should first create a template of this contract. So this is what we are going to do now. In ChatGPT, there is this feature called Canvas. So to open Canvas, let me already, I pre-prepared the template, the instruction, the prompt that we'll be using. So, okay, let me maybe quickly tell you that in this contract, I'm being Marcus. I'm just saying like contracts should have these kind of fields like parties, scope of work, materials, product and time, total price, warranty, scope creep clause, cleanup site, and so on, and signatures at the end, right? So I'll just copy it right now. It's the exact instruction basically for ChatGPT to create this kind of template for us. And let's maybe start a new chat actually. And I'll click this plus here, go to more, and here you have this option for Canvas. And let's paste the instruction how to create this template here. Let's send it. Then it will think for a second. As you can see, like there are gaps identified which need to be filled, but we will fill them also using AI. Don't worry. So now we are just creating a template. But let's say that you would like to actually edit this template, because I know AI sometimes hallucinate, sometimes you just disagree with what the answer it gave you. So probably normally what you would do, you would write some kind of prompt here, just asking it to refine this template and so on. But there is a better way to do it. If you're using this Canvas feature, you can go to edit mode. And actually, you can do two things here. You can manually make some edits, maybe client email address. And here. So you can edit it manually. Then obviously, if you prefer to use the prompts to change, maybe refine materials section, make it more comprehensive. You'll understand that it should edit just material sections, and live, as you, it's not me, I'm not touching it. Live is showing you what changes it's making to the documents itself. Right? And again, like once it's done, or even if you don't like, if you by mistake put this prompt, you can always pause execution. And yeah, again, you can edit this. So if you don't like, I know this, just this.
Actually, it looks pretty good.
Okay, so if you like it, we'll go ahead with that. All right, and once you're done with Canvas, it's just saved as a normal conversation with ChatGPT. So you'll find it on the side. I think it's this one. So let's close the edit mode, and the good thing is that now. Okay, and now you want to keep reusing this template. So how to actually do it? There were some questions during the presentation that okay, how to like separate your business prompts from your individual private prompts and so on. A good way to achieve it is also through projects. This is almost like an alternative to this custom GPTs that were mentioned by the guys. This is almost like you're creating working folder that will be almost like a separate entity within your ChatGPT account, let's say, right? So let's call this project yeah, let's call it just big deal leak hunters. And especially on this more business-oriented accounts, you have like more controls around if data that you put in these projects, if it should be visible to more members of your team or just limited group and so on, or should the information that you put in these dedicated projects should be actually used in other prompts beyond this project. I mean, as a knowledge of your ChatGPT account beyond this project or not. So again, like another reason to get a business profile ChatGPT. But okay, let's now, since we created this project, we would like to embed this template here in this project. So as you probably noticed, I clicked on sources here, and you can put as a source almost like you're now building a database within this project, database of information, right? So you can connect it to your Google Drive, to your Slack. You can even just copy paste text input, or maybe upload some other files. I think ChatGPT is not yet supporting videos or images. I mean, when it comes to source for project, but other like kind of PDFs and other documents like Excel files, it will understand. All right, so in our case, we want to actually take this template that we just created, and yeah, here in this, you've probably seen like what I did. Like I just went back to this conversation, this Canvas conversation here on the left-hand side. Click this three dots here, and here you have option to move to project. And as you can see, project that we just created is already available. So, but now it just copied the chat to this project. So obviously it's nice. We can keep talking, keep editing this template here. But it would be actually good to like embed this template as like a fixed document that this project should be referencing. So actually, the way to do it is just once you have this. Sorry, let me go back to edit. I think I need to go back to edit. Okay, that's interesting. It failed to edit document. All right, so there you go. Maybe it's just because of free plan. I think Alex mentioned that AI sometimes has its moods. So all right, but yeah, we have this document here. So you can always just copy paste it. Oh, actually, okay, so it's higher here. You can return to editing this document or just copy it as it is. So let me do it this way. I'll just copy it. I return. Once you create the project, as you noticed, it appears here on the left-hand side, right under project sections. So now go to sources, click add, and we'll just add this template as text. And let's call it. I think I'll be using master roofing agreement template. Right. So let's title it this way. And the next thing is that we would like to. I think this is what Mark was at some point saying that we should use. Mark actually showed even briefly the instructions section. So you can set up global instructions for your ChatGPT account. But actually, for projects, you can set up individual instructions that will be applicable just for these projects. Because sometimes, I mean, in the future, especially if you create more and more projects and you will have like your, let's say, global account, you just want to separate it, right? So in this case here, if you're like on this project panel, you can go in the top right corner, project settings, and you have individual instructions just for this project. So let's maybe just to make sure that every time
Yeah, and it retains that memory and those instructions. So if you're collaborating with people, again, you're not having to start over. And the more you feed it, the better it is, right? Context is key.
Exactly. So in the project instruction, maybe we can just almost like hard code it that whenever in the prompt used in this project, we will say something, create client contract, let's say. It will understand that you're referring to this master roofing agreement template that we hard-coded there in this knowledge database. We just hit save here, and let's try it out. Oh, and one more thing, because it's always better to the more information that you give to the sources of this project, the better it will craft the response for you. So I think for my next cases that I'll like briefly show you, it would be good if we also provide the context of this company in this project itself. So again, just go to the project, add sources, just text input, and here I'll paste this very high-level information about the company profile. Let's call it company profile. The beauty of it, because as guys mentioned, ChatGPT will memorize what you're talking about to it, and it will have will reference parts of, let's say, your discussions with it. But if you want to have full control, this is a much better way, right? So here you can go to the sources, edit, remove them, add new ones, and this is especially important when your situation is changing and some of the memories actually you want them to be removed, so you cannot control this inaccessible GPT memory, but you in the project itself you can control the sources. So if information in the sources is no longer relevant, then just go and remove it, right? Okay, so let's say now we want to create this contract for Karen, for our customer. So I already prepared this prompt here. It's just basic information, but again, you should be following this information. I mean, this prompting technique where you tell it about the context, role, and so on. But just to speed up the presentation, I already pre-prepared it, and let me just paste it here. As you see in the prompt itself, I'm asking ChatGPT to use our master roofing agreement template. And if I just hit run, yeah, it should produce template ready, be sent to Karen. All the information about this case. All right. So, and this is not just for micro companies or beginner users. We use this technique as well in our company. So, yeah, but remember, business profile is the key. All right, and as you can imagine now, for Marcus to create a contract ready to be sent to the client, it will just take him, I don't know, 1 minute or something. All right. Okay, and the last thing, just to show you that now, once we created the project and it understands our situation, it understands our company, and so on. Let's say the final step in this whole case was that Karen was super happy with our service, and she recommended us, Marcus' business to David Smith, and Marcus from the meeting with Karen, he just gets some basic information about this prospect. So he wrote it down, and again, you can just go to the projects. Sorry. So yeah. So some basic information, and let's assume that he also have a prompt ready for cases like this. So yeah, so as you can see, it's like a very simple prompt. Here I pasted this basic information about the prospect, gave it some instructions. So if you have like library of prompts, your job will be just to change this section with rough notes. And if you go back to the projects, paste it. Oh, let's return to the main window of the projects. Paste it. Run. Okay, and we have readily available email that we can send to this prospect, referencing who provided the information, who suggested to make this contact, and some basic initial introduction. All right, so I know that we're running out of time. We have 15 minutes for questions. I have some more examples, but it's up to you. If you have questions, we can spend this 15 minutes on questions and answers, or maybe to wrap up the session.
Yeah, let's do questions and wrap up. And
Okay.
then we'll send this out. So everyone, if you want to review it, you can certainly do that. And then as Prez said, we've recorded it. Yeah. All right. But yeah, if you guys have questions for Prez, go for right now, and then we'll wrap up. It's a lot to take in.
Last one is off the wall. So we're not allowed to use ChatGPT. We can use Copilot. Is it all pretty similar?
I'm not a heavy user of Copilot just because it has limited capabilities, but I know that people say that it's integrated into Microsoft tools, so it's just easy to access. I'm not sure if it has the concept of Canvas, GPT, custom GPTs, or
It
but
has
yeah.
some of it. So we've used them all. And so a lot of businesses, because they already have their people Microsoft licenses, are using Microsoft Copilot so they can control in the system. The back end for Microsoft Copilot is ChatGPT. Because Microsoft was one of the earliest investors. I mean, they actually get a percentage. They were literally the first or one of the first few investors. It's an awkward arrangement because they're an investor, but ChatGPT and OpenAI are doing things that actually disrupt Microsoft, so it's uncomfortable. But if you look, like Copilot put out announcements, oh, this 5.4 is now available. That's ChatGPT's 5.4 that's behind the scenes. Now, there are some things that Microsoft's built on top of that. Agents, they've got Copilot Studio and all this other stuff that's kind of inside their ecosystem because they're trying to, obviously Microsoft's huge with business and enterprise customers, and they're trying to figure out how do we leverage this as a productivity tool for businesses because we want agents to just do things for us and help us out. But the back end reasoning, thinking behind it right now, it is OpenAI and ChatGPT, if that makes sense.
Basically, I think what she's asking is same thing I would ask is the prompt I'm using at ChatGPT, the same prompt I use in Copilot or Claude. If you're asking the same question of all the different apps,
Yeah.
will it work the same way? You may get different answers.
You should get, so if you're between ChatGPT and Copilot, you should get probably the exact same answer, very close to it, as long as you're using the right model. Because they have different models you can choose from. There's the quick model that's a fast answer. There's the everyday model, and then there's the deep research one, which is if you needed to really think, and that's where you spend more tokens because it's a video game. How hard do you want it to think? If I'm doing some really big strategy thing, I will put it in the deep thinking mode. It's going to take longer, but I'll get much more comprehensive and well thought out output. That's where you're paying more, but you're getting PhD level output is the idea. So Copilot and ChatGPT, again, should get very similar answers. If you go to Claude or Gemini, I find they're very different because they've developed their own models, is the answer. But I know there's a lot of folks that are love it or hate it. They're stuck with Copilot because the company's on Microsoft and they're just, you can have anything you want as long as it's Microsoft Copilot. I've got a buddy of mine I saw last night. He's like, yeah, they rolled out for Microsoft because the only option I have is Microsoft Copilot. Can't use any of the other ones.
We had a guy last month that spoke at the Dallas area real estate lawyers, and what I took away was that they have different strengths and weaknesses.
Yes.
He had used Google Gemini, as I recall, to prepare a ad, so you can just see it's up there on the screen.
Sure.
And he said he thought that Gemini was better for that sort of thing.
Well, you have to look at what their natural strengths are. And this is my opinion. This is very much a generalization. If I was a marketing or content creation company, I'd be tempted to use Gemini. And the reason for that is because Google dominates search, and the YouTube ecosystem is now actually the largest media company in the world in terms of content. So think how much video and search content that's already native to their ecosystem. They don't have to go out and find it. They already have it right there, right? Whereas other ones have different strengths just based on how they're being used. So they do have pros and strengths and weaknesses based on it.
Yeah, this guy had done, the fellow who runs Daryl is a lawyer named Mark McPherson. He's an environmental lawyer.
Yeah.
And this guy did an ad that flashed up on the screen. He put McPherson's head on Conan the Barbarian's body,
Yeah.
complete with sword. chasing a couple of people off who were trying to cut down a tree.
Yeah.
And he said it took him 10 minutes to do it.
Yeah, no, you can make all kind of crazy videos on it. I mean,
Yeah.
Google's image generation is just probably the best, but look at their ecosystem. They already have all that kind of content and data. If I was a law firm, honestly, having all of them, Claude's probably the best for lawyers because their context window and a few bells and whistles, heavy document management. But they all have their strengths and weaknesses. It depends. So you really kind of need to look at your business. You know, a lot of these you can do monthly subscriptions, so you can try a couple and see which ones you get better ones and say, okay, I like this one, let's cancel the. I've told some businesses you may want to try that. It's not that much risk to pay it for a couple few months and try it out. So
People talk about perplexity. Is that something?
yeah, Perplexity's out there. They have kind of an interesting model the way they're working because there are some out there like a Perplexity. Part of what they do is they essentially buy intelligence from multiple AIs. And then when you go into theirs, you can kind of pick your AI. So that they're doing stuff on top of it, but they're kind of reselling. I think there's some use cases for that. Frankly, I think most people, I don't see a lot of businesses using Perplexity. They're trying to get into that space. It's probably one of the strongest for search in certain functionality. I don't know how big the market's going to be for most people going in and needing to buy a subscription to one that gives you access to all these other ones. Because what if you really like this one and you only get so many tokens on it? I think most people are going to wind up with one or two that they're going to use. It's an interesting model. There were some experts that talked about this a while back, and a lot of them felt that Perplexity was one of the highest risks to not make it long run because they don't know if it's going to be as sticky to certain types of it. Because consumers are more fickle. A lot of them are trying to go after the business customers. That's where they make money and it's stickier revenue. I don't know if Perplexity has as many business use cases as the long.
Talk about tokens a couple of times.
Yeah.
Does the cost and on average? What is it?
So some of them, if you go to a certain point, you kind of burn out your usage for the day or the week. You potentially could. Now, what they're starting to move to, and Claude does this, is you can actually see your usage for the week. And if you're starting to bump up a limit because you're doing really heavy documents, then you can pay to get more as an add-on as you go. But ultimately, you're paying for how much can I put in, how much can I put out, because you are leasing. It's like leasing an oil rig. You know, how many oil rigs do I want, right? It's based upon how much I need to pump in terms of data. That's really what it comes down to is context in, context out. And there's going to be, it's a convoluted formula, but you're essentially pumping tokens into that arcade, but you're trying to get out intelligence instead of Gallagher or asteroids or whatever you play. Yeah.
It also depends on the model you're using too. Like
Yes.
Claude, if you're using Opus 4.6, which is like a more thinking model, they're gonna your tokens aren't worth as much. Like
Right.
Sonnet point what or something.
Yes, they've got like with Claude, Haiku is the simple, quick model. You don't burn a lot of tokens, but you don't get a PhD level response. It's kind of quick and easy. Whereas if you go to Opus, that's, you know, let me get the PhD in here. He's going to charge you more money, right? So, but you're going to get better output. So a lot of people put it on auto mode where it just kind of determines based on the question. But if I'm doing something really specific, if I'm doing big level strategy stuff or heavy documents, I'll put mine into an advanced thinking mode. And I know I'm using more, but I'm going to get a lot better quality output. Yeah. And if you ask me all these questions again in 6 months, you're probably all, it's moving that fast. So.
I read the MIT report on the state of AI for 2025.
Yeah.
And it said that 95% of SMB AI projects fail.
Yep.
And last year, 42% of companies abandoned all of their AI initiatives.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to a small business owner before they commit huge resources and time to then find that they can't deliver? How do they prepare for
I saw the study, and my 2 cents on it is I think people thought we need this, but they didn't have a strategy and they just threw it out there. But I think it was very sloppy implementation and planning on their part, frankly. What I tell people for small to medium businesses, start with a handful of users who are doing heavy things in PowerPoint, Excel, business strategy and management. You know, we are offering consulting services, but just start with monthly subscriptions for a handful of people. It's not that big of a risk to pay $30 a month for 4 or 5 of your top people and let them prove that there's time savings and strategy. And so I take kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. Let's get a few people to show it works, get some advocates, and then think about a rollout plan for there instead of just throw it to everybody and hope stuff sticks up against the wall. That's not, you know, hope is not a strategy. You know, if you have a goal, but you don't have a plan, it's a wish. It's not really a strategy. So.
I have also comment to this report because it was very popular in AI communities. The thing is that Okay, my background is in corporate finances, so I've been working for UBS and Credit Suisse. I have plenty of colleagues in Bank of America, Chase, and so on, like IT departments. And the thing is that even I was when I was still at the bank, we were launching this internal chatbots, creating some kind of AI tools and so on. But the purpose of creating these tools was not really to actually create something super useful that will be lasting for years, but more to get people familiar of even like how to use it. So when you're looking at this report, like yes, 95% of these projects failed, but the purpose wasn't then to like keep rolling. The purpose was just to make people familiar with the infrastructure, make people familiar with features and so on. And now it's still being heavily used, right?
Accenture just rolled out ChatGPT Enterprise to all 700,000 plus of their global employees. Deloitte just rolled out Claude with custom personas and profiles based on what you are in the company to their 450,000 people. I don't think they're going to throw away money if they don't think this is going to work on it, right? They've done their homework. I think they'll probably be a little bit more thoughtful about it. But it's going to get to a point where I think most companies, if you don't have this, you're just going to be a competitive disadvantage. There's certain jobs it doesn't immediately disrupt, but if you're in sales, administration, legal, marketing, if you're not using this type of stuff with what it does, you're going to be behind the curve competitively. You know, luckily, I'm an IT company. My guys are geeking out on this. They love it. I mean, I do too. So I get excited, but it's disruptive. I mean, we've talked about in the future maybe doing one of these on how not to let AI replace you and your job, because it's scary to a lot of people. There's companies that most of it, we've gone through the augmentation phase where it's boosting your productivity, but we're starting to see the replacement phase where they don't need people to do certain things because you just click a few buttons and it does it. So that's what's concerning people. And how are we going to retrain and reskill people? I don't want to be made obsolete, you know. So that's where we've got to. Yeah, and lawmakers are way behind on plan on this. And that, you know, I saw them at the Davos conference in Europe the other month, and they're telling the EU, they're telling America, the leading economies, you're behind on it. You've got to be ready for what's going to happen because it's going to disrupt a lot of jobs. You don't really have a plan. You're just sitting here debating. They're not getting anywhere. And this is where my concern is our institutions are too slow to adjust for something this fast. You know, the Industrial Revolution, it was great, but it took decades. This is in a year, you're obsolete on a skill, and it's just that much faster, and that's the development. So it really is.
And from the small business side, because I've taken a lot of AI courses over the last 3 years, but the ones that I see actually stick with it, because I follow these people over a long period of time, are the ones that actually implement it and mark out on their calendar times where they're going to sit down and actually do AI, where they're like learning it, they're getting better at it, and they've actually trained themselves, or they've taken a course or whatever. To get better at it. And those people that actually implement it and force themselves to sit there and do it, they're the ones that are still doing it today with me. The people that didn't, they don't use it anymore. And they probably cancel their subscriptions at this point, you know. So that's what I'm seeing on like the small business side of it too.
Yeah.
Having to do with it. Like you said.
Your AI courses.
So many.
I think there's a lot of people who have to retrain themselves on how to think. If you want to roll out AI in your business, you can ask ChatGPT how to do it, as opposed to trying to figure out.
Yeah, you literally can say, "I work at this."
How do I implement Microsoft 365 across? I got to figure this out. I can't ask Microsoft 365 or whatever software. You can ask ChatGPT or Claude how to do this, right? So I think that's the difference. But I think you're going to find, we've already kind of seen it, is so many of these large companies that are dominating, just like you had Google and Facebook and Microsoft, right, that are dominating. Where, you know, I have a client who uses Manus, right, and they roll over your credits. They're one of the few, but nobody's ever heard of it, right? So I think that could be a problem where some of these fail, is that nobody's using them because nobody's used them or they have an image, as opposed to, you know, Claude or ChatGPT.
Yeah, small businesses need somebody there who's going to be a champion for it. It's not just, okay, here's the tool, figure it out. That's where you're going to get the failures, in my opinion.
That's where I come in.
Yeah.
I do AI implementation.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, we're managed service provider, but we're starting to help people with automation and AI and stand it up because they don't know what they don't know, and they don't understand the tools, and it's changing really fast. And so if there's not somebody there to kind of lead the charge, it's going to fizzle. And these bigger businesses are going to use it. You know, most of us work at small to medium businesses. They've got the scale, but we're more nimble. We can outquick them. They're slower to move. That's how Claude got PowerPoint an AI solution in PowerPoint from Microsoft did. Microsoft's Microsoft. They got more money than God. They should be able to do anything. But somebody smaller and nimble beat them to it because they were just quicker to come up with solutions. Same thing in Excel. They have that in there, and it's better than what Microsoft has in it.
Just for Copilot, so disappointing.
Yeah, the Copilot overall is disappointing. Whereas I love Claude. I mean, I have both, but I use Claude and ChatGPT for different things because I find them stronger in one thing versus another.
Any other questions before we wrap up? It's 1:30. We want to be respectful. We've already had some people take off. I think they didn't realize that that went to 1:30.
Yeah, it was 1:30.
So we definitely want to thank our speakers today.
Yes.